Oh, hello there, children. Are you sitting comfortably? Welcome to this edition of Crypto Book Club with me, RBC, DEFG, HIJ, KLMNO, Schmidt. After last week's reading of Michael Saylor's How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, today's text comes from the scribes of Capitol Hill. In March 2022, President Biden signed an executive order on the regulation of digital assets. And 6 months later, still hot off the press, we have it. The first ever comprehensive framework for responsible development of digital assets. Today we'll be going through the corresponding fact sheet to gauge how US policymakers plan to fuck with our bags for years to come. But before we do, a very quick word from our sponsors. Optimized for security and sustainability, Aura is bringing strong yield on stables, Ether, and key DeFi assets back to Ethereum. Aura is trusted by over $300 million in TVL from users and DAOs like Balancer, Gnosis, Rocket Pool, Notional, and Olympus. Visit aura.finance today and participate in protocol governance to get access to DeFi's newest home for reserve assets. You're just clicks away from making your idle assets productive. Galaxy is the leading Web3 credential data network in the world. This collaborative credential infrastructure enables brands and developers to engage communities and build robust products in Web3. With Galaxy, users can explore Web3 and learn to earn campaigns with over 700 partners. On the other hand, builders have the opportunity to create growth campaigns on a seamless plug-and-play dashboard. Galaxy is constantly innovating, introducing Galaxy Passport, the one-click solution to verifying Web3 identities. Mint yours today. Sleepy Joe's policy guide is split into 7 sections, the first of which is entitled Consumer and Investor Protection. Classic. And one can't help but feel the long shadow of the Terra collapse cast across its pages. Of course, not everyone agrees that regulation is a good thing at all. For some, the Darwinian forces of a free market economy should be left to its own devices. For others, regulation is a necessary part of the maturation process, a mere bump on the road towards mass adoption. But whatever your position, most will agree that the true specter here isn't regulation per se, but regulatoooors using investor protection as a pretext to exert control. And yes, cash in those sweet, sweet Benjamins. Nice. After all, US citizens are welcome to piss away their savings at Caesar's Palace or on sports betting, so if preventing bad decision-making was the heart of the issue, DraftKings would not be a multi-billion-dollar company. But it is. No, as ever, this comes down to taxes. And you best believe that if there's any money to be had, the government, bless them, will take it. Anyway, this particular section, arrives at some rather uninspired suggestions. For example, that the SEC and CFTC continue to aggressively pursue enforcement actions against unlawful practices while encouraging, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, and the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, to redouble their efforts to enforce against unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices. Redouble their efforts, yes. Basically, to do their bloody jobs. I mean, that's 6 months of work across 9 government agencies. And people wonder why the US is a declining empire. Yes, they do. Section 2 is where things start to get interesting, and in its defense, it does address the obvious shortcomings of the current system, acknowledging the 7 million unbanked Americans, the 24 million relying on costly, non-bank services for everyday needs, inefficient cross-border payments, and exploitative remittance services preying on the poorest in society. Unfortunately, though, it goes on to propose an ominous solution. Not XRP, thank God, but something almost as bad. Fed now. Fed now? Fed. Did you have breakfast? Were you fed then or fed now? An instantaneous 24/7 interbank clearing system that will further advance nationwide infrastructure for instant payments, which sounds suspiciously like a new Federal Reserve payment rail, or in other words, the infrastructure for a future CBDC, a subject we'll return to shortly. Worse yet, the fact sheet foreshadows a post-apocalyptic scenario by encouraging government agencies to support the adoption of instant payment systems like FedNow and to use them for their own transactions where appropriate. For example, in the context of distribution of disaster, emergency, or other government-to-consumer payments. So, basically, the world is ending, and we'll be getting our universal basic income courtesy of a central bank digital currency. Wicked. Section 3 is all about fostering financial stability, and it's at pains to remind us yet again of the man in the background sneezing his COVID germs all over my face. Once again, we are reminded of the Terra crash of May 2022, as if we could ever forget. In terms of policy, it suggests the Treasury works with financial institutions to bolster their capacity to identify and mitigate cyber vulnerabilities by sharing information and promoting a wide range of data sets and analytical tools, which is a long-winded way of saying expanding the Treasury's reach by working with other agencies to identify, track, and analyze emerging risks that relate to digital asset markets. The danger here is when fostering financial stability unnecessarily stifles meaningful innovation. And it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine government agencies clamping down on protocols based on perceived risk in order to push forward their overarching agenda: regulatory overreach. In a similar vein, the following section is titled Advancing Sustainable Innovation. And while it is quick to remind us about the forest-destroying, sea-polluting effects of proof of work, it nonetheless suggests the opportunity to align the development of digital assets with transitioning to a net zero emissions economy and improving environmental justice. Imagine Batman, but green. And yes, we can argue all day about environmental justice, whether fiat is in fact the root of all evil, and if proof of work is actually net positive for the environment since it incentivizes the pursuit of clean, cheap, and abundant energy sources. But whatever your position on climate change, I'm sure we can all agree that reducing the emissions associated with Bitcoin is a good thing, if only because it obviates one of the easiest arguments against the network itself. The fear here is that the Department of Energy, the Environmental Protection Agency, will consider further tracking digital assets' environmental impacts and could ultimately be used as a proxy to dismantle mining operations in the US further down the line. Unlikely as that may be, it is actually theoretically a possibility, not least considering the next section is titled Reinforcing Our Global Financial Leadership and Competitiveness, or as one might accurately put it, preserving the US hegemony. Today, global standard-setting bodies are establishing policies, guidance, and regulatory recommendations for digital assets. The United States is working actively with its partners to set out these policies in line with our goals and values, while also reinforcing the United States' role in the global financial system. Yep, the US does not want to be left behind here, and certainly not give up any kind of leadership position, so it's unsurprising to hear it intends to maintain a foothold in international decision-making around digital assets. Or as the report describes it, leveraging US positions in international organizations to message US values related to digital assets. US values, everyone. Let's hold those up and take a look. Values that apparently include data privacy, free and efficient markets, financial stability, consumer protection, robust law enforcement, and environmental sustainability. Of course they do. And as to whether it's a good or bad thing having the US at the spear's tip of all of this, well, that entirely depends on who you ask. So the penultimate section concerns everyone's favorite pastime, illicit finance. Although in this case, it is in fact fighting illicit finance. Where's that green-cowed Batman when you need him? And as you'd expect, the report refers to digital assets' role in money laundering without mentioning the fact that cash remains the criminals' preferred medium of exchange. It touches upon the rise of ransomware, but of course fails to acknowledge that blockchain technology makes moving ill-gotten money moving around much, much harder. Just ask Dutch Liechtenstein. And yes, it also alludes to Tornado Cash by referencing the DPRK's involvement in the Ronin hack earlier this year. Crucially, though, it says, the president will evaluate whether to call upon Congress to amend the Bank Secrecy Act, the BSA, and laws against unlicensed money transmitting to apply explicitly to digital asset service providers, including digital asset exchanges and non-fungible token or NFT platforms. And as part of this effort, Treasury will complete an illicit finance risk assessment on decentralized finance by the end of February 2023, and an assessment on non-fungible tokens by July 2023. Wow, Sleepy Joe's NFT report. To say I was hyped would be an understatement. Finally, the section, well, we've all been waiting for, the real crux of this whole damn report, exploring a US central bank digital currency, or CBDC. As they describe it, a digital form of the US dollar has the potential to offer significant benefits: more efficient payment services, cross-border transactions, financial inclusion, and, oh yes, Orwellian levels of state dictatorships. Okay, it doesn't really explicitly say that, but make no mistake, that is the elephant in the room here. In no way, shape, or form does a CBDC, as the report says, respect human rights and align with democratic values. It's literally the opposite. A government's ability to control the flow of money, not just to track what you spend and where you spend it, but also determine your right to do so. It's a very, very dangerous precedent. And once we've crossed the Rubicon on that front, there is absolutely no going back. Worse yet, everything in this report suggests that a CBDC is on the horizon, almost as if it's the very lens through which it was written. The move to a cashless society is already underway. It's been underway for 30 years. This would be the final nail in the coffin. China led the charge with the e-yuan, and if you can be sure of anything, it's that the US isn't about to get caught with its pants down, only to end up buying Russian oil in digital renminbis. It's not a matter of if, but when. And even more importantly, whether citizens can mount a meaningful resistance against it. And it's why we all have to be hyper-vigilant against regulation that stifles the very innovations that provide the alternative. Just imagine if Satoshi's invention marked the beginning of the end, the framework on which CBDCs would end up replacing the already broken monetary system. A centralized, blockchain-based state currency with an infinite supply that could be expanded or contracted at the click of a button. The irony is kind of horrifying. And so while a CBDC feels inevitable, this space actually needs to come together to ensure it doesn't come at the expense of decentralized alternatives. So next time you're about to sling mud at a lame Cardano holder, just remember that the time will come when we must cast our differences aside to defend the ideals we all share rather than bickering over minor differences. Ultimately, the report doesn't really tell us much we didn't already know. It just fills in some of the blanks and gives us some dates to work towards, which means uncertainty. And while it leaves a lot to be desired, I would like to congratulate Sleepy Joe on his efforts, how he found the time to work on such a lengthy document in between, wrecking the economy and sniffing children's hair. It's impressive stuff. As for the final product, well, some will tell you it's fundamentally bullish, a vital step towards mass adoption, while others will present an overwhelmingly bearish reading, proof positive that the government is coming for your bags, for your staking yields, for your Ethereum nodes, for the whole 9 yards. Yes, even that JPEG of a cat you've been storing, just in case someday the price goes back up. But the truth is probably somewhere between the two. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time to cover the scintillating psychological thriller, Catch Me If You Can, by Do Kwon. This, as ever, was the Defiant.